Welcome to the review of Who Killed Malcolm X. Netflix miniseries contains 6 episodes, investigated by Abdul Kamal Muhammad, who is an independent investigator to find out the truth about who killed his childhood, not just him alone, but the hero of many nations of Islam members, black Muslims in America, that is, and just like hero all over the world, as Malcolm X was. This documentary, I've seen the movie. I've not read Malcolm X's book or anything, but I've seen the movie, and it was complete. Of course, it's a movie. It was a little bit different to what the documentary offers. The documentary is a much better depiction of the story, like in depth, which a lot of movies don't get into. So 1000% recommendation that you watch this documentary. I believe Abdul Muhammad went in to investigate the killing of Malcolm X with all biased belief, which is still, although he came across a lot of different parallel truths, he still stood and was very biased against and really didn't want to accept that the murderer of Malcolm X could actually get away with what he did, despite what that man represented to the rest of the black community. He also had his own identity and his own. It was also loved by the community, and things get a little bit complicated as well, being in that particular Muslim community, because there's also the belief of redemption. If you go to Mecca and you redeem yourself and you repent, you are to be forgiven regardless of who it was, regardless of the sin, effectively. I didn't know what to expect with this documentary, but it was a pleasant surprise that I got from it. I learned so much about the relationship between Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm a very critical thinker, so I'm not biased in any way. Well, I try not to be biased the majority of the time in any way. So I was able to look at it from all angles that the story was being told. I doubt that was necessarily the intention of the filmmakers. However, the truth were there and it's unavoidable. If you watch it with a critical mind, with an open mind, you'll be able to see where everybody were coming from. Even the people who defend Mustafa Shabazz, previously known as William Bradley, who is alleged to be the assassinator of Malcolm X. He was very much in love with Elijah Muhammad because of what Elijah Muhammad stood for in the black community during those times where they were being persecuted on a daily basis and incarcerated and never really had a real identity for the working class or lower class back then. Young black male involved in criminal activities and in and out of prison, and Elijah Muhammad had offered these young guys, including Malcolm X, a different identity to themselves. It's so admirable watching that. If you watch the documentary, you see how he had lifted them, and despite his fault, which I don't necessarily think it was right in and he should get away with it or it should be overlooked, even still, you cannot overlook what he did for those young boys who didn't have that parental guidance. It was that parent to them. He was God to a lot of them. I mean, there was even a lady in the documentary saying that he was like God, and they wouldn't hear any bad word say about him. And this is what Malcolm X did once he left the Nation of Islam after finding out certain truths. the thing with Malcolm X was that he was a very upfront guy. What you saw is what you got. What he spoke about was what he believed to be the actual truth. Once he found out the truth was different, he changed, and he wasn't so afraid of those kind of changes. You know, the slander that happened with him on Elijah Muhammad when he would make public speeches and public comments about it was almost like a rap battle, which was a little bit low. But his followers, Elijah Muhammad's followers, his sons, they just wouldn't. And his sons, we don't know much about them. From what the documentary makes it out to be, his sons were basically leeches and exploiting the organization and using the money in vain, like using the money vainly. I saw this to my very surprise, the way that this story is told, this investigation and this film has been made, had been very fair to everybody, every part of it. I don't know what the spirit of Malcolm X thinks about Mustafa Shabazz, William Bradley. I'm not sure what he would think of him, because when Bradley had died, the whole community, Muslim community, even the ones who love Malcolm X, just honored his presence and his existence and what he offered into the community, how he had transformed himself. One man even mentioned how he repented, and maybe he lived with the guilt of killing such an honorable, upstanding guy like Malcolm X. Maybe that he suffered with that. And Abdul Muhammad wanted blood. He wanted him to pay for those crimes, and the attention was also given to the people who served the sentence, the other two guys who served the sentence for who wrongfully served the sentence for the murder, 20-year sentence for the murder of Malcolm X. And my heart goes out to them too, and I hope that they find a different way of looking at this, or a different way of looking at their whole experience, rather than being caught up in I was wrongfully accused and I served a sentence that I didn't deserve to spend, and see what there must have been something there for them. There must be something, a lesson or something there for them, because I don't think all of this had happened in vain. The murder of Malcolm X, the unpunished crime of William Bradley, also known as Mustafa Shabazz, so I don't know all their names by heart. I don't think it was all in vain. I think there was a significance to all of this. Nothing happens without a reason, and I think it's a lot deeper than this, and that's what I got from watching the documentary, the short series. It has to be, because it's so freaky in a way that it happened. Like, one guy gets caught, there's all the evidence, all the finger pointing, and at one point then they tried to make it out of maybe, William Bradley was working along with the police, because even Malcolm's bodyguard was also known as an undercover police, working for the police, trying to get stuff on Malcolm so they can get him for arrest, so they can arrest him or whatever. So there was a lot of dodgy things happening. This wasn't just this life, it was life. There was a lot of versions to this story. It wasn't simple. It wasn't simple as calling somebody a traitor it's very complex, very parallel world to it, different perspective. And watching it to the end, and I never knew I would feel for what I felt for William Bradley at the end of that documentary. The filmmaker, Abdul Muhammad, who independently went and to investigate this, did not want William Bradley to come out as a hero of anything. And I don't think the film made him look like a hero, although he was a hero in his community. However, it's not as simple as he was this evil man that should have been punished or whatever, because somehow he seemed to have served a purpose, an important, a significant purpose to that particular community, and that can't be overlooked. Check out the documentary. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.